Okay, my name is Alda Nindya, and I am an intern at the ASEAN Foundation. Once again, I'm more than honored to be the master of ceremony for the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN Webinar Series today. Empowering Youth Across ASEAN is a collaborative program between the ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation to empowering youth across ASEAN to create meaningful and sustainable impacts to the ASEAN community. Starting from 2018, Empowering Youth Across ASEAN is deploying hundreds of youth across ASEAN to collaborate with local people and civil societies in advancing sustainable development in the ASEAN region through the spirit of volunteerism. Up until now, we have impacted more than 29,000 of people across ASEAN. This webinar series were officially launched on December 2020 with the first episode titled Becoming the Volunteer of Change. To continue its success, the ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation are proud to deliver the second Empowering Youth Across ASEAN webinar series, bringing up the topic of advancing social cohesion and tolerance through education and youth. As indicated in the name, today's webinar focuses on discussing the role of ASEAN youth to sustaining peace and inclusive community of ASEAN through education amidst COVID-19 pandemic, and also in the spirit of International Day of Education, which fall on 24th January 2021. Before we started the webinar, firstly, I would like to inform you that this event will be recorded and live streamed on the ASEAN Foundation Facebook page. Now, without further ado, to kick us off, we will have two opening remarks. The first one will be given by His Excellency Ambassador I Gusti Agung Wesakapuja, Executive Director of the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. And the second will be given by Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir, Maybank Foundation Board of Trustees. Now, may I have the honor to invite Ambassador I Gusti Agung Wesakapuja to the screen.
Thank you, Alda. Excellencies, distinguished speakers and participants, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. Good morning, Datin. A warm greeting from Yogyakarta. I hope everybody is safe and healthy. It is a distinct honor for me to join all of you in this precious event. Before we start, I would like to thank the ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation for making this webinar possible and giving me the honor to deliver one of the keynotes. This is indeed an excellent opportunity to discuss the important role of the youth as well as education in the discourse of strengthening the tolerance and understanding in a diverse society like ours, and moreover, advancing the sustainable development in the region. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, the past year has been one where we have to get used to many adjustments, find new and innovative ways to continue our lives, our work, and our goals. In that regard, history has shown us again and again that the youth, like many of you present today, is at the epicenter as one of those deeply affected, but at the same time have shown to lead with creativity and innovations, think out of the box and break boundaries to give way to new ideas. Compassion by the ASEAN anthem, the ASEAN way. We dare to dream, we care to share. Please allow me to start my keynote by sharing our goals and endeavor to forge and foster the culture of peace in the region, and in particular, to empower the youth as agents of peace. So in the scope of ASEAN regional peace and security and its challenges, when we talk about peace, certainly we are not searching for a white dove carrying a branch of olive trees flying over a rainbow. It is said that peace is the absence of conflict. ASEAN has demonstrated its journey as a remarkable region in which peace and stability have been safeguarded and maintained. The existence and maintenance of peace and stability have allowed ASEAN to gradually build and establish a strong foundation for economic and social development. ASEAN is a concert of Southeast Asian nations, outward looking, living in peace, stability, and prosperity, bonded together in partnership. It envisioned a vibrant and open societies where all people enjoy equitable access to opportunities regardless of gender, race, religion, language, or social and cultural background. This is the backbone of a people-oriented and people-centered ASEAN community. However, building and maintaining a peace and prosperous community is not without its challenges. The idea of peace and stability is still generally perceived only within the context of absence of war or direct violence. In reality, peace entails a more proactive mindset where social, economic, political, cultural, and ecological conditions support the fulfillment of human development as addressed in the ASEAN Vision 2020 and its subsequent ASEAN Community Vision for 2025. Thus, in building a peaceful and prosperous community, implementing this larger understanding of peace requires us to work harder. That is why such endeavors should not only fall under the responsibility of the government on track one institutions. As in any process, it is paramount to ensure not only the inclusivity, but also participation and engagement of all related stakeholders from the grassroots to the policymaking level. And how about the role of youth and education? Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is where the youth of ASEAN enters into the picture. ASEAN youth from 15 to 34 years old in ASEAN, in our regions, are currently more than 213 million, according to statistics. In ASEAN context, we have seen an abundant example of how youth is actively engaged in economic and cultural discourses and that contributes to societal development. The engagement and contribution of the youth in the discourse of peace is as equally vital as other stakeholders, if not more, because as they are key actors in grassroots development and as the next generation leaders, the youth will have a significant role to bring the ASEAN community towards sustainable peace. On another note, the issue of youth goes hand in hand with the concept of education, as many of them also carry the role of students. Education plays a pivotal role in cultivating and fostering understanding and tolerance in a diverse society, thus achieving sustainable peace as addressed in the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 4, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Education certainly is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. When the quality of education is well managed, schools can be a powerful tool to induce peaceful and tolerant views. However, we need to identify and acknowledge that there have been evident risks for schools becoming a place that incite teaching of intolerance, discrimination, and even extremism views. This brings back the point and emphasize on quality education. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to highlight that when we are moving towards sustainable peace, we would be simultaneously moving towards sustainable development. The two concepts are mutually supporting. As an inclusive, equal, and just living condition would pave the way for better economic opportunities and growth. And now, how can youth play an active role as peacekeepers in the region? And how can education be integrated in peace building efforts? This is my view, is where the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation could be part of the answer. So what is the mandate, function, and the role of ASEAN IPR within the regional architecture? In 2012, as part of the ASEAN community building process, the ASEAN leaders established the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. The ASEAN IPR is mandated to be ASEAN's institution for research activities on peace, conflict resolutions, reconciliation, and post-conflict peace building. In dealing with these issues, the Institute is given the flexibility to reach out and collaborate with relevant stakeholders, ranging from government institutions, academic institutions, civil society, and of course, youth groups. To fulfill such mandate, the Institute is given 5 functions, namely research, capacity building, pooling of experts, networking, and dissemination of information. Of such functions, allow me to highlight 2 which are most relevant to today's discussion. First is research, namely to compile ASEAN experience and best practices on peace processes, undertake studies to promote gender mainstreaming in peace building, and aim at enhancing regional mechanism for pacific settlement of disputes. Second, capacity building, namely knowledge building among stakeholders, promote the voice of moderation and advance work in promoting a culture of peace. And what I would like also to underline from such function is the Institute nature as track 1.5 platform in its works and activities. This means that the Institute could serve in building capacity and increase involvement of the youth in ASEAN to promote dialogue, understanding, tolerance, and in the long run, fostering sustainable peace. And within ASEAN's regional architecture, the Institute functions as an important tool in achieving the targets and goals laid out by the APSC Blueprint 2025, as the ASEAN's IPR is assigned to implement 10 action lines within the APSC Blueprint 2025. In this respect, allow me to highlight some activities that the Institute have carried out in the past, which has provided a platform for inclusive participation in peace building, especially among the youth. In 2018, the ASEAN IPR held a regional youth conference on peace and tolerance with the theme Building Unity and Common Understanding in Countering Intolerance and Violent Extremism. One of the outcomes of the conference was the ASEAN Youth Declaration on Peace and Tolerance. The declaration set about a foundation for the youth to take part and contribute in the promotion of peace and tolerance by creating and promoting narratives of peace, tolerance, and pluralism. Such promotion could be done through various platforms, such as arts, creative industries, and information and communication technology, including social media. In October of last year, the ASEAN IPR convened a webinar which highlights the empowerment of women and youth in building sustainable peace. Amongst those which has highlighted during the discussion is how dialogues can foster not only understanding and tolerance, but also embrace diversity amongst different groups in the framework of building sustainable peace. Discussions acknowledge how youth groups are often sidelined by the elders due to perception of behavior. However, it is recognized that importance for youth groups to build a strong connection between competencies, skills, and willingness to be agents of peace and agents of change. Lastly, we are very excited to inform you that later this year, the ASEAN IPR will conduct another training and capacity building program focusing on youth groups as its main target. This project follows up to the ASEAN Youth Declaration on Peace and Tolerance, aiming at promoting the utilization of technology as an instrument for peace by its biggest group of users, the youth. The project is called Youth Tech. Youth Tech is scheduled for the third quarter of this year, and I fervently hope that we will be able to engage with all of you again for this convening. Dearest participants, I would like to reiterate once again that involving youth in ASEAN's community building process is a definite priority for ASEAN. Acknowledging that in the end of last year, the youth minister of ASEAN has also committed to enhance the cooperation of youth in ASEAN and creating social cohesion through bringing youth into more discourse and effectively implement the ASEAN Work Plan on Youth 2021-2025. I would like also to acknowledge that empowering youth across ASEAN, or the EYAA program, is closely in line with our mission in increasing more participation for youth in peace building, forging connections between youth and communities, empowering them to be agents of change and execute impactful projects to communities. The key point for its success will depend on, to some extent, whether this program can respond to wider socio-economic, cultural, and political barriers that the youth face in their quest of becoming an active agent of positive change and peace building. I believe that we are forging ahead together in the right focus by urging the involvement of youth as agents of social change and peace, setting aside the common belief that the youth are future leaders our future leaders when they can actually become leader of today. The positioning of youth in our society has a bearing on their leadership potentials and their future role in peace making and peace building. It is my hope that the ASEAN IPR will grow not only as but as the platform and hub of ASEAN's many stakeholders, including the youth groups, to collaborate on relevant issues related to peace processes. With the pandemic still proceeding in the region, peace-building efforts may be hampered by the inability to conduct physical meetings and many other challenges. But I'm confident that the youth of ASEAN can overcome such challenges, innovative, and bear the fruits of opportunity beyond and despite the challenges. No old road towards a new direction. I would like now to conclude by giving you all some food of thought and hopefully get some feedback from you in our discussion session. First, what do you think is the most urgent agenda related to peace in ASEAN that should be taken on board or even spearheaded by you, the youth? Second, how can ICT be harnessed to support sustainable peace building by youth groups in the region? So with those two feedback, I would like to acknowledge ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation for providing this platform to dialogue. I wish you a very productive discussion and thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ambassador Igusti Agung Wesakapuja, for the wonderful remarks. Next up, I would like to invite Datin Paduka Marina Mahatri to address and inspire us all.
Thank you, Alda. Good morning, everyone, and I hope you're all keeping healthy and safe. Your Excellency, Ambassador Gusti Agung Wesakapuja, Executive Director of ASEAN IPR, my fellow speakers, Dwi Rubianti Khalifa, Ngonvanta, and David Yang, colleagues from the ASEAN Foundation and from Maybank Foundation, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. First of all, let me thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of the Maybank Foundation, the sponsors and co-organizers, along with the ASEAN Foundation, of the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program. The Empowering Youth program was begun only 2 years ago, but sadly, like many activities that span across different countries, has had to be postponed to such time as when we are able to meet face to face with one another again. However, I'm very happy to see that we have managed to pivot online to this webinar series, an excellent way to keep in touch with one another, as well as discuss the issues pertinent to youth across ASEAN today. Today's topic of advancing social cohesion and tolerance through education and youth is, I believe, one of the most relevant topics in the world today. We have seen of late how divisiveness and intolerance have become more and more prevalent, often led, unfortunately, by leaders who should know better, but choose this path for their own ends. All over the globe, we are seeing people fighting one another because of race, skin color, religion, nationality, politics, and every other differentiation they can imagine. At the same time, we are living in an era of great economic stress, where every single country in the world has been felled by an invisible virus. You would think that a global disaster such as the COVID pandemic would unite us against a common enemy. But sadly, it has yet to work that way. We need to look at why before we understand how to correct it. First, let us have a common understanding about what we mean by social cohesion. By one definition, social cohesion refers to the extent of connectedness and solidarity among groups in society. It identifies two main dimensions: the sense of belonging of a community and the relationships among members within the community itself. Or in another definition, social cohesion is the belief held by citizens of a given nation state that they share a moral community which enables them to trust each other. The idea of trust among citizens is important. In ancient times, when people lived in small nomadic groups, security meant that you had to trust the people you were with and assume that everyone that you don't know, strangers from outside your group, would be hostile, having come to steal your food, livestock, or women and children. The only response to these strangers would be outright hostility, and that was often fatal. As our societies grew and settled into bigger towns and villages, and we lived among people we did not necessarily know personally, we had to devise a system where we could trust everyone in the same community. Everyone is assumed to want the best for everyone else in order that the entire community would thrive. They also became dependent on each other. Farmers were needed to plant crops, millers to mill them, merchants to sell them, and women to make food out of them. In order for everyone to be able to eat, they needed to trust that everyone would do their jobs at the right times and places. Once we became industrialized and we began to live in cities full of strangers, trusting people became harder. We began to be unsure that we could rely on everyone working for the well being of the entire society. Inequalities began to emerge, where some groups were better off than others, could employ others to do their work. If everything works smoothly, then it's fine. But when it doesn't, then trust begins to break down, and with it too, social cohesion. We've seen this happen in many places where elite groups in a society made policies and laws that benefited only a small group of people, yet expected the majority of citizens to trust them. This trust can become severely strained if a large majority of citizens feel that they have been discriminated against or severely disadvantaged. And in some cases, as we have seen in many of our countries during colonial times, this can lead to violence, resulting in even more misery. Only the rebuilding of that trust can bring a country out of this suffering, and this may take a long time, in some cases, several decades. Indeed, a study done of most countries in the world after the Copenhagen World Summit for Social Development in 1995 found that average levels of trust among many citizens overall is very low and has remained stable over the past 2 decades. In some countries, the citizens have a high level of trust among themselves, while others have low levels of trust. And the thing is, these rates have not substantially changed over the years. What is interesting, however, is that high trust levels go together with well-functioning democracies, economic growth, and satisfaction with living in a modern society. And where there are higher levels of trust, there is better social cohesion. So, what is trust built on? Studies have shown that it is built on several things. One is that it is dependent on the degree to which two other of the main goals of the Copenhagen Summit can be met: the goal to eradicate absolute poverty and to support full employment. People need to not feel hardship as a whole, and that they have opportunities to better themselves and their children. Thus, governments that implement policies to eradicate poverty and provide job opportunities for their people tend to fare very well and remain stable. They are trusted to run the country, renewed every 3 years through elections, as long as they maintain or even improve on these policies. In other words, that's parliamentary democracy. But when very wide gaps in economic equality begin to appear and are not addressed, this breeds distrust because people feel that their leaders are not working for the benefit of everyone. Secondly, it is built on education. Good academic education is, of course, important because that is what leads to better employment opportunities and allows people to get out of poverty. That is something that has been proven over and over again, especially in countries that have emphasized education for women. But at the same time, I think education also means to be able to know one another in a society better. All societies, even if people seem to be the same, are actually diverse. Even if everyone is of the same race or religion, there will be differences, whether it's merely age or gender or class, lifestyles, beliefs, political affiliations. It is important to acknowledge and understand these differences because it's often the neglect of them that leads to a tearing apart of social cohesion. For example, many governments ignore the voices of young people and believe that they know what is good for them, often without asking for youth input. This leads to laws and policies that miss their mark and creates greater frustration. Women and racial minorities are other groups whom ruling elites often forget, except during elections, or simply neglect to consider their interests. For instance, for a long time, governments did not recognize the impact of domestic violence that most frequently happens to women and the impact of domestic violence on the economy because it was regarded as an internal family matter, nothing for governments to worry about. Indeed, today, many women's rights activists are arguing that inequality in marriage, where only husbands' decisions are recognized by law, also has an impact on the economic health of a country as well as its entire well being. Education is therefore very key to nurturing social trust and therefore social cohesion. In my country, Malaysia, for example, we have a problem of students being segregated into many different types of schools, often conflated with either race, religion, or with wealth. Most Malay children, for example, go to public schools or religious schools, while minority children go to private schools or vernacular language schools. Naturally, this means that there is very little interaction among them. What they may know about those different from them may not be grounded in reality at all, and this can also lead to stereotyping and conflicts. The solution to this, I believe, is not, as some have suggested, to do away with the vernacular language schools, but to reinstate trust in the public schools that the quality of the education there will be of high standard and that every child will be treated equally. In this way, parents of every group would be motivated to send their children to public schools again, ensuring a diverse student population. I also believe that another educational way to rebuild trust is to talk about the lived realities of one another instead of promoting stereotypes, especially of the negative kind. For example, speaking of one group as if they're all bad or all rich or all dirty, when the reality is that every group is diverse. Being able to speak openly about the successes and failures of each group will humanize everyone and enable them to see the commonalities among one another. After all, if the price of food goes up, all poor people are affected regardless of race or religion. Ironically, this is something the coronavirus can teach us because when it attacks, it disregards all the differences between us. It only sees the similarity that we are all human and can host it in our bodies. The word tolerance has often been bandied about when we talk about social cohesion. I have a bit of a problem with this because the definition of tolerance is the ability or willingness to tolerate the existence of opinions or behaviors that one dislikes or disagrees with. But the thing is, if we start feeling that these opinions or behaviors we dislike seem to be gaining popularity, we will start to feel marginalized and will become less tolerant of them. We've seen in the world today that even though people like to say everyone is entitled to their own opinion, a lot of people, in fact, don't like that and will even take action against those they disagree with. If governments don't like people they disagree with, they can take very harsh action, such as violence, arrest, and imprisonment. Even citizens have been known to become violent when they disagree with others, as we saw only about 2 weeks ago in the US Capitol. So to me at least, the concept of tolerance is problematic, especially if we expect it to remain static. To tolerate is inadequate in my mind in building social cohesion. We need to be working to build bridges between people of different ideas, opinions, and behaviors in order to get to a level of understanding of why they are different. It also helps us to understand why we are the same, and often this matters much more. This then helps to build the trust necessary to become a cohesive society. So, where do young people come in these trust building projects? I think you have a huge role to play in building the cohesive communities of the future, especially in these days when we are seeing this cohesiveness fray at the edges. The same studies on social cohesion have shown that a lot depends on the trust levels of young people in any society. They found that when overall trust levels in a society increases over time, it is often caused by the coming of a new generation with more faith in the trustworthiness of fellow citizens and the dying of a generation with less faith in fellow citizens. The other way around also occurs. A decline in overall trust levels over time is typically caused by the coming of a new generation with low social trust and the dying of a generation with higher social trust. But what is important is that if the young generation indicates higher trust than the older, it is a sign that the given society could be on a path towards social cohesiveness because people rarely change their trust levels over their lifetime. If the opposite is indicated, that is, that young people show high levels of distrust, then it is a sign that the given society could be on a path towards social erosion. I believe that young people will have higher trust and will therefore work towards cohesion if they feel there is hope for them in the future. For this hope, they need the support of those who hold more power, who listen to them, who invest in young people by enacting laws and policies that build social unity. There are many things that governments can do to promote trust by young people, providing quality education, eradicating laws that discriminate against young people, and enacting those that promote and support youth. As an example, in Malaysia, we have finally, after 60 plus years, lowered the voting age to 18 from the previous 21. This is an acknowledgement that young people have a stake in how the country is governed and gives them a voice through the vote. We cannot, however, just depend on governments to do what is right. We also need to look to corporations and civil society to provide the sort of environment that allows people to trust one another. Indeed, there are many initiatives that bring people together to learn about one another, whether within countries or across them. Empowering Youths Across ASEAN is a Maybank Foundation flagship program, and it aims to empower and bring youth leaders to be change makers in our communities and create positive impact in the ASEAN region by working with community groups and CSOs addressing real issues affecting daily lives. In partnership with ASEAN through the ASEAN Foundation, it is recognized as a program strengthening community bonds, as stated in the chairman's statement during the 35th ASEAN Summit in Bangkok in November 2019. We at the Maybank Foundation were very excited when we began these programs some 2 years ago. But as with all things, as you know, we could not continue it as originally envisaged because nobody is allowed to travel. So I'm very happy that we were able to pivot online with these webinars. Together with the ASEAN Foundation, we kickstarted this webinar series with a session entitled Becoming a Volunteer for Change on 15 December 2020 to commemorate International Volunteer Day for Economic and Social Development. Over 250 online attendees from across the ASEAN region joined in for that webinar, encouraging us to carry on with the rest of the series, which is why we are here today. So I look forward to the presentations by our three speakers and wish you all the best for a very lively, I hope, and fruitful discussion, and hope that all of you will actively ask questions afterwards. It is your voice, after all, that we need to advance the social cohesion and unity that we so badly need today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir, for your inspiring message. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we officially begin the webinar. Over the next 2 hours, our speakers will give their presentation on the topic of advancing social cohesion and tolerance through education and youth. This session will be moderated by my lovely colleague, Ms. Jenier. Ms. Jenier, I would like to once again invite you to the screen.
Thank you very much, Alda, for your wonderful introduction, and thank you to our excellent keynote speakers today. It's very good to hear your speech, and I'm sure everyone here feel empowered and excited already. So thank you very much for that. My name is Jen, and I am the Program Support Officer at the ASEAN Foundation. I'll be the moderator for today's discussion. So everyone, before we start our discussion, let's refresh our mind and loosen our muscles a bit. I'd like to invite everyone to play an ice-breaking game. So please visit menti.com. It is menti.com. You can either use your mobile phone or your web browser. Please visit menti.com. Once you have logged in, please put the code 1894444. For our speakers and panelists, feel free also if you'd like to join this game. It's a short game. And yeah, I hope that everyone can join the game. If you have any problem, you can let us know through the chat box. And I'll be waiting for everyone to join menti.com. All right, I will type the website on the chat box as well, and the code. Okay, I hope that some of you already joined the menti.com and hope that you can see my screen. Okay, so I see some people already joined. I'm looking forward to have more people joining. We have, I think, 27 participants. So again, you can either use your web browser or your phone. Just log into menti.com and put the code. I already put the code on the chat box as well. And let us know if you have problem joining this website. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds to wait for more participants to join. This game will give some hints about our discussion topic today. And before we start, let me give some tips to win this game. First, don't think too much, just give your answer because the time is very limited. The faster you give your answer, the higher the point that you will get. At the end of this game, I will announce who's the winner of this ice-breaking game. And this game will ask some questions related to the topic of our discussion today. Few more seconds, I think more people will join. We have 56 players right now. Okay, then I think we can start. Okay, I see so many people joining, 75 avatars, so that's a good sign. Let's start with the first question. Which of the following is not true about the Sustainable Development Goals? Which of the following is not true about the SDGs? You can see the option on your screen and just choose which one you think is not correct. Is it A, B, C, or D? 2 more seconds to go. Yes, it is very fast. And the correct answer is D. They are legally binding. So as you know, SDGs are not legally binding, but they act as a guideline for each country's development program. So congratulations for those who answered it correct. Let's move on to our second question. I hope more people can guess it correctly. How many goals are part of the 2030 SDGs? How many goals are part of the 2030 SDGs? Is it 8? Is it 16, 17, or 30? Please don't mistaken it with MDGs. And your time is up. The correct answer is 17. I see 50 people guess it correct, so it's a good sign. And let's move on to our next question. Again, answer fast to get more point. What SDG is on goal number 4? What SDG is on goal number 4? Is it quality education, zero hunger, no poverty, or gender equality? If you pay attention to our poster, I'm sure you will be able to guess it correctly. Time's up, everyone. The correct answer is quality education, and 92 people guessed it correctly. So well done, everyone. Our next question, which SDGs topic concern you the most? So for this one, you can type your answer on your screen. You can type anything, any of the SDGs topic that concern you the most. I see quality education, poverty, gender equality. Most people said education and gender equality again. Okay, great. So we received so many answers, or we see climate change as well. Is there anyone answer peace? There's clean energy, youth empowerment, peace and strong institution. There you go. Climate change, goal number 1 and goal 2. Okay. Peace, justice, strong institution. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your answer. I do agree that all the topics that you mentioned are very concerning topic, but today we will mainly talk about the education and peace topic. So I think we still have few more questions. So next question, if you are a part of the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program, where would you like to do your volunteer project? Is it in Indonesia? Is it in Philippines? Or is it in other ASEAN countries? Okay. Most people said Indonesia and Malaysia so far. And Philippines, followed by, I believe, Thailand. Okay, you can choose any country, doesn't have to be your home country. If you have the chance to do a volunteer project, where would you like to do it? Okay, it's interesting. So as you can see on the screen, most people said Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, then followed by other countries. I do believe that all ASEAN countries are a great place to do volunteer, and Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program can facilitate you to do your volunteer project. So thank you, everyone. Let's move on to our next question. Okay, our last question. Do you know which one of this topic is not part of the discussion today? I already gave you some hints earlier, so hopefully you can guess this one correctly. Which one is not part of today's discussion topic? Your time is up. And the correct answer is environmental sustainability. It is indeed an important issue, but we will cover this issue perhaps in our next webinar. Today, we will mainly talk about youth, social cohesion, and education. So that is the end of our ice-breaking game, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. We'll see who's the winner. And congratulations to Monique, Bloom, and Magical Rhino. 3 of you are the top 3 of our ice-breaking game today. So congratulations, and thank you very much for everyone who participated in this ice-breaking game. Now, please go back to our Zoom screen as we will begin the discussion shortly. Okay, so I hope everyone is able to come back to our Zoom screen. Do not stay on the Menti. We will start our discussion shortly. All right. So everyone, before we jump into our discussion, I'd like to remind our speakers to keep your microphone on mute while other speaker is presenting. And for the audience, later on, if you would like to ask questions to our panelists or to our keynote speakers, if they still stay at this webinar, please type it on the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. On there, you can also vote for questions that you think is the most interesting or relevant. If you wish to directly ask questions to our speakers, please wait until the Q&A session. I will give the chance to two lucky audience to directly ask questions to our speakers. So now, let me introduce you to the bright minds that will be our speakers today. First, we have David Young. David is a youth program specialist at Unesco Bangkok. In his daily role, he manages and supports programs aimed at increasing the role of Southeast Asian youth in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Welcome, David. It's very good to have you here. Second, we have Ms. Dwi Rubianti Khalifa. She is the Indonesia Country Director of the Asian Muslim Action Network. This organization focuses on the role of women in peace building and interfaith cooperation. Her work has been recognized internationally. She was awarded 100 Women of BBC in 2015. Welcome to Ms. Ruby. And last but not least, we have Ms. Ngorn Fanta. She is the Director of Color Silk Foundation. In 2009, she launched Color Silk Enterprise in Cambodia with a mission to provide employment opportunity for women in the villages. In 2015, she was awarded as Outstanding Young Social Entrepreneur of the Year by Cambodian Young Entrepreneur Awards. So we have a very good lineup of speakers today. So I'm sure all of you are very excited to hear from them. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor first to David. David will talk about why education is crucial in building peace and tolerance towards sustainable diversity. David, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, Jenny R. Sawadee Kap, everybody. Good morning from Bangkok. Thank you to the ASEAN Foundation and to the Maybank Foundation for inviting me to speak today, this event. I wanted to start my presentation by briefly introducing myself. Usually I say my name is David Young and I work with young people. It's a joke that I like to tell at the beginning of all my presentations. It's a bit cheesy, but it seems to work. I want to talk about first what I'm doing at UNESCO. What people think I do at UNESCO, usually the most popular thing that people think of is World Heritage. That's our biggest brand. It's what we're most globally known for. People also think that maybe I'm working in education, like I'm working in the schools, I'm working with students, or I'm working on cultural preservation, preserving cultural artifacts, again, relating to World Heritage. What I actually do at UNESCO, I am not working on World Heritage and I am by no means an education specialist. But what I do is I design, manage, and support programs and skills building trainings focused on enhancing leadership skills of youth in Southeast Asia and beyond. This includes trainings on policy development like youth policy, research and media advocacy and literacy, awareness raising of vulnerable youth subpopulations, working with Indigenous youth, LGBTQI populations, occasionally youth with disabilities. Also increasing opportunities for networking amongst youth organizations and networks in the region. And from time to time, developing resources for enhancing opportunities for youth participation. And if you're interested in some of the work I'm doing, before I talk about it a little bit more, I have a few QR codes on the pictures. One is relating to Indigenous youth an op-ed that I wrote about that. Another is youth policy development in Laos. UNESCO did work in Laos and Vietnam. Anyone here from Laos and Vietnam? And also a hackathon that we did on developing mobile technology for teaching and preserving indigenous languages in Southeast Asia. That was something we did in Singapore last year. Before I go further with my presentation, I want to learn a little bit more about you guys, all of you who are watching this today, because really this is for you. And I want to know what are the biggest challenges you have faced during COVID-19? And I'm going to copy Jenny-R's activity and have you go to menti.com. That seems to be the go-to game app today. I'd like you to go to that link. You can go to that link, or you can scan the QR code. The code is 1270469. And in 1 to 2 words, I'd like you to tell me what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced during the pandemic. So this is a word cloud, 1 to 2 words. Don't write me a whole sentence, please. It'll be very hard to read. So I'll just give you a few seconds to go to that Mentimeter. Again, that's 1270469. Okay. So wow, okay, we have a lot of people answering the word cloud. I hope you all can see that right now. We have mental health, which is really standing out as one of the biggest challenges. Education, productivity, anxiety, that's a mental health issue, which could quickly become depression. Online classes, again, something relating to education. I see quite a few online classes on there. Technology, again, associated with maybe connectivity during the work from home and education. Facilitating learning, homesickness, yeah, that's a good one. Economic problems, job opportunities, boredom, yeah, boredom for sure. I have that problem too. Internet, stuck. Proper study place. So some of you are not finding maybe a place that you want to study. Face-to-face interaction. Yeah. So we got a lot of really good ones here. So I want to quickly go back to my presentation. Thank you all so much for really sharing your insights. And it seems like what I'm seeing amongst all of you is that we're having challenges with education. We're having challenges with mental health, job opportunities, employment. And these are really, what you're telling me here is really happening all over the world. It's happening within Southeast Asia. These are the common problems affecting young people during the COVID-19 pandemic, which to date has infected over 96.1 million people globally, of which 1.8 million cases have been reported in Southeast Asia. It's likely that you or someone you love or somebody that you know has been infected with COVID-19. Chances are very high. So the pandemic, as you know, has really resulted in lockdown and social distancing measures all over the region, which has disrupted education and employment for all of you. And of course, the uncertainty that the pandemic has caused has also aggravated mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression. These are all issues that you noted, and these are all issues that are happening all across the board. I want to just do a quick snapshot for you. UNESCO, we did a quick survey to inform a project that we're doing about how COVID-19 was impacting young people globally. And of the 700 people that answered this preliminary survey, 83 were from Southeast Asia. And the purpose of this survey, it's a very small survey, as you can see, was to inform the priorities of another project that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But some of the highest responses we had were students need to know how to be self-motivated. Access to equipment and internet is unequal and impacts some learners. The teachers have less opportunity to pay attention to the individual needs of a student. And then another very high one listed was uncertainty about graduation is creating anxiety. So these are all very much reflecting what you wrote in your word cloud for sure. Another thing that we looked at when we were developing this project that I'm going to talk about were the perceived impacts of COVID-19 on the well-being of youth in Southeast Asia. And the biggest ones were, I mean, they're all quite big, but the top ones were mental well-being, physical well-being, having good health and enough energy to get things done. Maybe working from home has been making you a bit of a couch potato, as we say in the US. And then career well-being, how you occupy your time or simply what you do for your professional development. What do we do now that jobs have been disrupted and education isn't really what it was prior to the pandemic? And that's just young people in general that I'm talking about. The pandemic, one of my areas of interest, one of my areas of work is working with what we call vulnerable or marginalized young people. And typically for us, that means Indigenous youth, youth with disabilities, LGBTQI, maybe young mothers, women for sure, migrant workers, incarcerated youth, maybe youth that have been imprisoned in the past and are trying to really find a way to get back into the normal world, so to speak, after prison. But the pandemic has aggravated all the challenges that we're facing these groups. Any existing challenges that they had, the pandemic multiplied it tenfold, especially in regards to health, employment, and education. So an example I like to use, because it's one of my focus areas, is that many Indigenous youth living in remote areas are without strong internet access. And coupled with communication and language barriers, this is already a challenge. So you have the pandemic where most countries have shifted completely to online learning. If you have trouble accessing internet, then that's going to be a big problem for you. Many health centers in rural areas might be hard to come by. The pandemic has made that difficult. Many Indigenous people work in the informal economy in many countries. If those were one of the hardest hit jobs, those have been one of the hardest hit jobs during this crisis, unfortunately. And then this is just a snapshot of a survey that I did on Indigenous youth. Employment, education, health, really all some of the big areas. So my presentation, the tone is going to take a more positive note now. I've been talking about the situation, which seems kind of bleak for all of you and all of us, but no fear. While the pandemic has resulted in the disruption of all major aspects of life for young people, it's also done something very interesting in that it's created a growing need for volunteerism and action among them. Instead of being overwhelmed by uncertainty, young people all over Southeast Asia and all over the world are seeking actions and solutions. They don't want to just sit at home. They don't want to just be unemployed looking for work. They want to do something. They want to take action. They want to respond to the pandemic in any way they can, either because they care about the social issues and impact, or they're bored and they want something to do, or a combination of both. But anyways, it's an opportunity that's been created by this condition. And I want to take the time now to talk a bit about some of the projects that we're doing right now at UNESCO that reflect this current reality in which young people are really taking action and acting as volunteers during the pandemic. And the best example I can think of right now is the Youth as Researchers COVID-19 response program. And what this is UNESCO is working with several universities, Penn State University in the United States and the National University of Ireland in Galway. Sorry, the National University of Ireland in Galway, Ireland. We're working with these two universities to provide training to young university-age students on how to do research on the impacts of COVID-19 on young people. Research that will go on to hopefully inform people on what the situation is of young people in terms of COVID and how people that can make decisions can respond to them, how they can make better decisions. And the training and coordination of this program is conducted entirely online. It's expected that the research will be done in this way as well. The research is just starting. It's a global program and 6,000 young people applied for the program, half of whom come from Asia Pacific. Only around 200 could be accepted, unfortunately. And we have teams in Vietnam, in the Philippines, and teams covering the Southeast Asia region as a whole. And all of these teams are looking at various ways in which COVID-19 has impacted young people, whether it be through learning or technology or well-being. And this is entirely volunteer. None of these researchers are paid researchers, but they're doing it because they want to take action. They want to take action during this pandemic. They see it as a way to boost their credentials and their experience during this time where things are uncertain. And I think it's one of the best examples we have yet of volunteerism. And if you're more interested in learning about it, you can click on the QR code on the top right. Another program that we're working on is the Asia Indigenous Youth Platform. This is more focused on a specific group, which is Indigenous young people. But UNDP and UNESCO, we work together to support Indigenous youth from South and Southeast Asia in responding to the issues affecting their communities. Like I said, COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted these groups. So one of the things that the platform is doing is supporting a small grants program to provide Indigenous youth organizations with small funds to respond to COVID-19 in their program, in their countries, in their communities. And again, the youth are primarily volunteers and representatives of youth-led organizations and networks. These are young people that are taking action through volunteerism and providing support to their communities. A final thing I'd like to talk about, a final project, and one that actually all of you could get involved with, is YMAP. And a few years ago, we started developing this because we found that a lot of young people and also a lot of UN agencies and a lot of NGOs don't always really know who's doing what in the field, what young people are doing what in what country. Many of us all have our own individual network, but then of course, when we leave our job, that network is gone, it comes with us, right? So we came up with this idea to develop an online directory of youth-led organizations and networks throughout Asia Pacific, which is called YMAP. And as of this month, we have 1,634 groups from 30 countries have been listed. You can actually see the light blue on the map. These are all of the organizations working in Southeast Asia. We have a lot from the Philippines. We have a lot from Indonesia. We could use more from Laos and Cambodia. But this is certainly, these organizations exist and they're all doing amazing work. And it's just one of the examples of the opportunities that are available for volunteerism for young people in this time. So I highly encourage you. I mean, if you are interested in social action, if you're interested in volunteerism, if you want to do something, I definitely, this is one way to go, are through these countless organizations that exist. Just some key takeaways that I'd like to go over. Now more than ever, young people around the world are looking for opportunities to take action. I can't emphasize that enough. And many opportunities are available, but can be difficult for some to find. And then the shift to online learning has not only illuminated the challenges relating to accessibility, but also motivation. If you can access a course, but if you can access it, you might still have trouble without more focused learning from the teacher. You might have trouble operating in a classroom without your peers, et cetera. It might be hard for you to be motivated. So just some recommendations. Again, I want to emphasize that I'm not speaking as an education specialist by any means, but I guess just really some recommendations that I would like to make for educators and schools is that a very good way to promote sustainable development and social action among students, both in formal and non-formal settings. A good way to do it is through not only providing project-based learning, but also encouraging volunteerism. Encouraging young people in their classes really to go out and connect with these youth organizations, these organizations that are doing amazing work for sustainable development. Do classwork with them, make it a part of a project. Do a project where you can work with an organization working towards social change. I think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it goes beyond theory and it's more hands-on action. It's learning by doing. And then another opportunity, of course, another recommendation is that projects focused on social research and advocacy can be used to instill inclusive and diversity values while also promoting critical thinking among students. We talk about the Youth as Researchers COVID-19 project. That's teaching data collection, that's teaching analysis. Those are all really critical thinking things, critical thinking skills. They're researchers that are focused on social action. So it's getting you to think about how you can raise awareness through evidence, which is really one of the best ways that you can do advocacy is evidence-based advocacy. It's more effective for your target audience usually. And yes, and advocacy as well, just doing projects relating to that. I think doing projects in general really gets you more in the mindset of having impact rather than just talking about it. With that, I would like to finish my presentation. Again, I would like to thank the Maybank Foundation and the ASEAN Foundation for inviting me here to speak. And I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and comments from all of you. So thank you. I will stop sharing my screen.
All right, so thank you very much, David, for your insightful presentation and the nice Menti game. Yeah, I think it's interesting when you mentioned that for the educators, we need to promote more project-based learning and encourage more volunteerism through youth-led organizations to improve the critical thinking skills of the youth. And for the youth, we can try to put more social research and advocacy theme into our volunteerism project so that we can see the problems from the data and evidence that we gather. So thank you very much, David, for sharing your insights. Up next, I would like to invite Ms. Ruby to the screen. Ms. Ruby will talk about young women, education, and social cohesion. Ms. Ruby, the time is yours.
Yes.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Let me give appreciation to the young people who are running this webinar. I think this is one of the creative event I ever attended, and then I'm very much supporting this kind of initiative and continuing reaching out young people, even in a remote area. Also to Maybank, I think it very generous and smart move by Maybank, putting effort to young people, specifically Ibu Marina. Your speech is very much inspiring, and yes, there are a lot of elements that now intersection to the youth issue. Peace is not alone, its intersection with the other issue, in particularly dealing with the crisis that we are facing together right now, pandemic COVID-19. And Bapak Gusti Agung, this is the first time I meet you, and I hope we can have a more collaboration in the future, in particularly expanding the work on women, peace and security. Friends, call me Ruby. I've been working with the Asian Muslim Action Network for 13 years now. And the work that we have done is covering a different target group. One is the interfaith mothers that we are helping them in shaping their leadership to be extraordinary, because we need more women to help the community in dealing with a lot of crises, in particularly in some part of Indonesia. We are dealing with issue of radicalism, extremism, as well as issue of violence against women. And the youth movement that we are eventually facilitate to grow is because our previous work with the mothers. So our thesis is like this: when you work with the women, you will see that a lot of marginalized groups and minority groups are finally growing and following the step of the mothers. And we witness this kind of development in the community that we are working in 7 provinces in Indonesia, when we started the work on the Women's School for Peace, and then growing, response from different groups in the community, including the young people are interested to also, taking action in contributing to shape the community resilient. So my presentation here is capturing just small part of the youth group called Peace Leaders. This group was initiated in 2014, I guess, with youth camp as the beginning. But then the group is growing very fast and doing voluntarily and engaging more and more young people to join with the group in opening conversation with diverse group, as well as creating a way how to bring young people experiencing diversities. So let them not just study diversity, but really engage in the diverse group and then experience something that perhaps too difficult for them to start. But when they joining with Peace Leader, they are able to open the door and then challenge their fear, and then confronting all the the barrier that the parents perhaps socialize in their life, because not many families opening for the young people to expose themselves by having friends from different religion, different ethnic group, or different sexual orientation. And the group is very much fascinating, that I would like to share with you. I hope you can also in the future get connection with this group. So why youth? I think David has given a very nice baseline about youth, and you have big population in the world, not only just big in the number, but I think youth also already prove that they are a game changer, and it is, yes, I can name it some of them, and I love girls. Greta Thunberg, for example, has been able to bring a lot of inspiration for young people to talk about climate change with her slogan on stealing her childhood. That actually really how do you call it, push the young people to also struggle for protecting environment since now, otherwise the future will lost. And that slogan is able to really move the adult, whether they are sitting in policymakers or they are just ordinary people. And the movement is so amazing, I think, inspiring a lot of people right now. I want to also bring Amika George from London, that actually able to gather a lot of support from the people with the movement called Free Periods. Amika proposed to the parliament that they need to have free pad for the students, the girls in the school, because there are many students could not afford a pet. And then, of course, Malala, you may know that always struggling with promotion, education for girls, and with the hashtag helping girls. I think she's able to now move around the world, and then really supporting the girls' education, not only just for the sake of finishing the school, but I think behind the movement of Malala, there are a lot of issues that surrounding girls. One is actually talking about child marriage. And then that in the world, girls married under 18 is huge numbers. UNICEF actually found 650 million girls in the world married under 18 years old. So Malala promoting education is actually not for the career only, but also for tackling or stopping a child marriage, because when child marriage is still going on, with the support of the culture or with the support of the religion, this will ruin definitely the future of girls, and definitely will reduce the quality of human resources in many countries. So they are game changers, but also the life of youth, girls and boys, they are also vulnerable. Yeah, they're facing female genital mutilation, child marriage, forced marriage, arranged marriage, sexual violence in conflict setting, for example, not only happen among girls but also boys. And recruitment for the violent extremism is also very high. Context of Indonesia, we're reflecting what happened at the global level. We have game changer, but we also at the same time experience a lot of girls by force have to to follow the parents for child marriage and sexual abuse, sexual violence, cyberbullying, intolerance, and many other issue, including trafficking and many more. And they need to be survive. They need to be able to tackle all of this. In particularly, we are currently our life has been shifted by COVID-19, and we have to deal with that because there is no choice that we surrounding us unless we showing our strong leadership, how we can pass the pandemic. So one of the very big root causes why youth facing a lot of violence, because one is the lack of awareness. Lack of awareness, not only among young people, but also for the adult, because the way adults are teaching young people, not all of them providing a freedom to information, learn more, and of course freedom for exposure, having different friends coming from different background. And we also realizing that the gender inequality is still very strong in our society. You may see that many society putting more priority to men compared to women. Boys are more supported by the family comparing to girls in many society. So I'm talking the part of the world, but perhaps the other part of the world, girl is more gaining, support in, achieving they dream. So knowing with these things surrounding girls, we understand that girls need enabling environment. They need to have a clear and strong, a clear, how do you call it, clear example, clear pathway, how actually they can, explore themselves to be able to strengthen the leadership that they are holding, and or maybe they don't have yet leadership, but through all any kind of program that become one of the way to exercise, their capacity to be more, able adapting with the situation, but at the same time problem solving, and then connecting with one another in order to create a collectiveness, because collectiveness is the power, and collectiveness need to be embraced by the youth movement. So this time, I'm just okay. This time, I'm interested to share with you with a 3 program that has been done by peace leaders, are able to inspire many young people across religion, ethnicities, and also sexual orientation. In Indonesia, it's happening in 7 cities in Indonesia. We call it one of the program called Peace Goes to School. That is basically the young people who already learn about peace building and learn about the values of peace building. They are need to actually share to other groups. So we call it peer-to-peer learning. For the adult like me, for example, perhaps we have a lot of barrier to talk to the young people, and we need to get the young people talking to their own friends about the experience of having prejudice toward others, and then experience of really seeing somebody that different religion and talking to them and feel it that they are human being like us, and we need to respect, and we need to continue exchange learning. So the Peace Goes to School running in 150 schools in Indonesia, injecting tolerance and peace in school. Why school? Because there are a lot of study in Indonesia that school is actually also spreading intolerance by, of course, by some of the activity running, and particularly group that spreading, intolerant thinking, or or because of some of the policy is perhaps discriminate others. Recently, there is in one of the province in Indonesia that actually encouraging the girls wearing Muslim dress code, and naturally non-Muslim perhaps also following the same dress code. At the beginning, there was no protest about that, but with the social media, And then there's a girl that protested about it, the non-Muslim, why we have to wear the Muslim coded dress like this. And we just want to express what we want to express. And that become like big issue in Indonesia, when it's good thing that a lot of netizens, giving attention to this issue. And then the Ministry of Education also responded quickly to really having a forum and resolve this issue. See, when the young people able to speak out, wherever that they feel it is not comfortable for them, whether this is forced by the policy or it is actually forced by the culture, and then and then the people will respond. And I am very much believe that media social, despite that in somehow creating a lot of tension and also a lot of perhaps cyberbullying happening in social media, but at the same time the social media also providing a lot of space for the young people to be able to voice. And the experience of discrimination, the experience of the bullying, the experience of sexual violence, for example, can be voiced through social media, gaining a lot of support. But it needs to have strong, leadership, and it needs to have a positive environment where the peer group have to support when their friends started to come up with a very strong voice to against the culture or against the status quo, or even voicing about something that make them not comfortable or experience violence. So Peace Goes to School, there's one of the initiative to actually bringing another approach in the school and helping school how actually to create more enabling environment to promote tolerance, to respect diversity, be inclusive, not only for the disabilities, but also for the minority groups and other kind of groups, including the most very marginalized LGBT. The other program that I would like to share with you here, done by peace leaders with the support of Aman, is a peace service, is a cleaning worship place or worship house. It is literally cleaning the toilet, cleaning the floor, cleaning everything inside there. But the message that the peace leader would like to propose in the public, that there are so many misconceptions about religion, and some people believe that somebody could not enter the worship house from different religion, and including among some of the Muslim, they believe that entering the church will actually ruin their faith, or they believe that they entering the temple will actually ruin their faith and able to actually convert them to other religion. Those kind of nonsense need to be a break. The silent among our society believing very wrong teaching, as well as the misconception, need to be challenged. And one of the challenge that actually proposed by peace leaders is actually bringing the young people and experiencing entering different worship places, and also cleaning it, and then listening from the religious leaders to talk about the teaching of the Christianity, the teaching of the Buddhism, and the teaching of other religion. Do you know, friends, it is not easy at the beginning, because it's really actually challenge your deep heart, whether you dare to do that. But when you started to open and then you enter the worship place, you feel that, oh God, this is not this is not scaring as what you thought before. It is just because you have a lot of barrier and misconception about other religion, so therefore you don't have a courageous to actually even enter the worship place. And I'm very happy to bring the story of a lot of changings among the young people, that even they could not sleep at night before they started the program, but then continuing, they feel that this is the really a good therapy for some of you who still holding, you know, the prejudice against other religion. Transformation happening, and including the parents finally have to support. So the program started long time ago, until now still continuing even under COVID-19, but they apply with the strong health protocol in order to not spreading the virus or prevent others to actually by the virus is still going on until now. The other is the last one that I would like to propose is ngopis, is actually drinking coffee and learning about peace in the cafe. So the coffee culture in Indonesia is really, you know, a mushrooming everywhere, in the big city and small city. And peace leader understand that it is always selected people that actually attracted by the idea of peace building. But we need people to hear that there are some young people voicing about peace and tolerance. And one of the places that they thought it is the natural and reaching boys and girls coming from different, you know, background is the cafe. And that is amazing thing. This is the intersection between the business and peace. Is the peace leader able to actually convince the cafe owner to host some of the conversation, and then including, you know, engaging other guests that actually visiting the cafe, and then this become one of the very popular among young people, because they're not actually dividing by the organization, but they're actually binding by the values and the, you know, the need to learn more and inspire more by other youth groups working in promoting peace and tolerance. So you want to try this ngopis, you can do in your country, and will be very exciting to do that. What are the lessons that we are learning, friends? Okay, youth movement often lack of gender equality component, and peace leaders showing their strong concern on issue of gender equality, and particularly issue of bullying that actually against the girls because of the way they're wearing, you know, a dress, or bullying because of something else, that because of they are girls. And also the peace leaders also responding very strong in regarding with issue of sexual violence happen in the university or in school, that the young people need to talk about it. You don't just talk about peace, you talk about your friends being bullied by other friends, or you talk about friends being, you know, torture or being, you know, violated by others, including by the teacher. You need to have a courage to speak about that. And gender equality is very important in youth, and it need to be integrated into movement. Other lesson learned that that we gain from the youth movement is collectiveness. Your voice will be heard, you know, strongly or even loudly by having collective movement. If you do alone, maybe you are good individual influencer, but I think collectiveness will really help you in learning how to deal in interpersonal relation, and how actually you able to understand every single leadership in your group, and then you bind it to be, you know, the strong, you know, capacity and sources to promote your work. Cooperation is much more important than competition. It is the era of ending competition if it is in the negative way. It is the era of the collaboration and cooperation for all of you across the border. There is no a barrier anymore to have collaboration with different people. and different human being in the in the world, and you will feel it that by collaboration you will gain a lot of new values. In particularly, you will master your humanity, and that is actually the big source of peace building and growing together. I listen that, and I also learning that the great leader is actually the leader who are able to create another leader. But if you still stand alone by yourself in managing everything, or in the last 10 years it's only you being recognized by the public, it's something wrong with the leadership. The leadership need to be collective. The leadership need to be able to grow other people leadership, and your friends have to be as good as you, as great as you, when they are enter into the room where leadership among young people been mentoring or coaching or growing or even facilitated to be more and more great. Yeah. And then it should go beyond project. I agree with the volunteerism. This is very, very important. And this will really give you the very nice pathway how you can see your leadership grow is through volunteerism. I started volunteerism in my life as well. And it should go beyond the project. You have project or not, your volunteerism is still alive and still growing. And it's still get momentum, and that is the real leadership. And movement is always guided by volunteerism, not the project. The money is just very, very little contribution to grow your movement. I think I should end my presentation, and thank you very much. And I am learning from this forum and looking forward to learn more from all of you. Thank you so much.
All right, so thank you very much, Miss Ruby, for your wonderful presentations. It's very eye-opening, and I'm sure that the youth who are listening to your presentation are also very encouraged and feel empowered. So up next, I would like to invite Miss Fanta to the screen. But before that, I'd like to remind to our audience that if you would like to ask questions to our panelists and also to Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir, since she is still here, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box on your Zoom control panel. Later on, during the Q&A session, I will read out those questions. So now let's welcome Ms. Fanta to the screen. She will talk about what the youth can do to preserve peace during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see my share screen?
Not yet. I think you can try again.
Okay. Sorry for that.
Okay, now we can see.
Okay. So Cambodia. So thank you to Jenny and thank you to Maybank Foundation and ASEAN Foundation for having me as a guest speaker for the Advancing Social Cohesion and Tolerance through Education and Youth webinar this morning. First, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a founder of Colossi Enterprise, and we are working to provide vocational training to young girls and women in the rural area. What we do is we empowering youth and women to have the permanent skill through by having specials in silk weaving, and then we employ to give the opportunity to women and young girls to have the permanent job and sustainable income. So what we do, we want to empowering the part of the youth and young girl also who quit school. And because in our vision, we seeing women and a young girl is a very important and a key role for the social and community, because a girl will become a woman, and when the girl have the ability, have a skill and knowledge, and when they become a woman, they will have the capacity, they have the own decision making, and they knowing, they tolerant, and then they can lead their own life and the next generation. So my topic today is talking about what a youth can do and keeping with during COVID pandemic. So I think in 2020 we already have experienced the lockdown and the pandemic and social distance practice. So applying to this situation, I would like to share some of the critical key to use and everyone to be practiced in the daily life. It's very important that we still keep our mind, keep our emotional and physical well-being during this pandemic. So I think the important thing is the mental. So normally we have feel scared and uncomfortable with the new life living and with the COVID-19 virus, something like that. So I think the mental is very important, that we still keep our mental very healthy, and we adapt our mindset and improve our mental by reading the book, online learning, watching a documentary that is applied to what currently our skill and education topic, something like that, and applying to this in a community as well. Because in community, some they lack all the information and they just feeling scared, and then the knowing the protection and knowing the root cause of the virus and pandemic. So this is very important to keep and sharing to our youth and people to have a strong mental. And the second one, I would like to say about the social connection. Even though we are practical in the social distance, but we still keep connect with our family, with our friend, with our group, and with our partner, something like that. So the best way now is the new technology provide us a very good a way to stay connected and to have the same room to talk, to share, and to learn each other by using the new technology, Skype, Zoom, and telephone call. And the next one, I think the spiritual and emotional is also very important for youth, because nowadays many schools normally lockdown and closed and temporary, something like that. So youth normally feel, I think they feel like unhope, or they feel like nervous, or they feel not comfortable. But I think in the new environment, the spiritual and emotional is very important for youth, because having to train your spirit and emotional to be positive, to live in having hope in life, to get by trying, for example, get to go the peaceful place, to get a fresh air, to let your self relax and adapt your activity or under the nature. So I think this is very important for youth and people to keep the spirit and emotional strong. And the last but not least, and physical practical is also very important, because not only we are, some of us are not movement anymore. Sometimes we stuck at home, we work from home, we not have many activity or movement. So I think keeping the physical strong by practical exercise regularly 10 or 30 minutes per day is very important to keep your body strong and healthy, and live in the hygiene condition and follow the instruction advice from WHO to keep your health, to keep your physical health is positive and healthy. So this is an overcome that we can stay and adapt the new life living in the COVID pandemic, because it still stand and for 2021, but we hope it will be a better with the new vaccinate, something like that. Hope it will be better. And the second one I want to say about youth and education, because we have a lot of experience with the working with youth, and we focus normally, and like Colossil and I and my team experience a lot working with young girl in the rural who have less education, or they don't have an opportunity to get a formal education. But from this, I would like to encourage youth and youth to have the formal education in the public school, to get the formal education, because education is the foundation to help and to develop their as a priority to build the bright future. And if the youth in the condition that they cannot get the formal education from school, I still encourage youth to get the informal education by skill learning. So like in Cambodia, I would like to say the community that we working, many of young girls, they don't opportunity to find a job or train access to the training, formal vocational training. So this I would like to say that this girl is during the 2020, because of the school is closed temporarily, we accept many young girls from the public school to attend our training course, viewing training. And not only viewing training, I think youth in the other condition, they can unlock themselves to have the skill training by learning the other, that allow them to have a permanent job after, or can earn the income. For example, they can go to their training session, for example, like a sewing class to become a tailor, designer, or hairdresser, something like that. So, but this is one of our experience that we work out very well to get a young girl from public school who are stuck in school pandemic to join us in weaving class. And the second one, I think use, and I want to say about use and vision. I think use is a key role for developing and to make a change to a society. So I think youth should have their own vision, because having vision help them to create a plan and for their future. Setting a future and plan for youth is help them to understand their potential, using their potential, and they can make the right decision for the future. So reflects from the picture, I want to share one of our experience and a group of youth from Empowering Youth Across ASEAN in first season in 2019. You can see from the picture is on a blank and plenty land, but the 10 of them, they have the vision. They have a vision with the goal and what they want to do and what they want to succeed in 2 week volunteering work. So from this 10 of them are setting up the goal and will develop the plan, empty land to become a purpose. So this is an achievement from the specific vision. Just an result. When you have a specific vision, you have a goal, and you put the vision and go together and using your potential and skill, and you will get the great achievement. What you plan and what you do, and you will leave behind the impact for the community. So this is an award from the empty land that youth have a vision, and they build up during the 2 week training volunteering work in the community. And the next, I would like to talk about youth and volunteering social engagement, because I think youth is and have a less experience. They normally get the knowledge and from school, and besides school education, volunteering is foundation to teach youth in learning the important skill of life, learning about the ethical, learning about the leadership, learning how to adapt their own background. Because normally when you work in the volunteering, you choose the organization that is applied to your background. You want to get a new experience, you want to explore your leadership, and you want to learn from the and touch from the real world. So this is when the youth participate and volunteering in the specific goal with the good organization, they will learn about the potential and they will learn to lead. They will learn about the differentiate of culture and learn to adapt and to work together to get to achieve the great goal. So the picture is reflect of the 10 of youth that they work in the same project, and they have a different background, they have a different skill, and they have a different culture, but they still work together very well to get the goal. So this is what we left behind of volunteering work, because normally youth is a great change maker for society. And once youth have the potential, youth put the effort and they want to contribute the leadership and skill to the community, they will make a great positive impact. So this is what the youth participate in the last Empowering Youth Across ASEAN in 2019. They plant 100 trees in the community for making the source of dying color for the viewing community. So this is the other experience from the youth achievement, and then they will become a role model. So what the youth done, what the youth achieve, they will be left behind of the model. So after the great moment of achievements, the other young from the public school also come to learn about their work, how they work together, how to come up the idea, and what is the result. So it inspire the next generation and inspire the next young people to learn the social work and to volunteering to learn about the skill and explore the leadership. And this is not only just the experience that they can back from the work and from the leadership and from what they done, but they also leave a very important and positive impact to community, because normally after they left the volunteer work, the community will take over with the sustainability. So this is they can provide employment opportunity, they provide the helping to unprivileged farmer and women in the village to take over their project after their volunteering done. So I would like to recommend that if any youth they have experience of volunteering work, it would be great. But if they don't, they should be try to apply for volunteering or join the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN the next session, something like that. So they will get the real experience and touch work that you cannot find from school. So I would recommend you to get more experience with volunteering and helping developing the community and society. And yeah, thank you, the Chairman, short presentation, and thank you once again for having me today. And I'm happy to answer any question from the forum.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fanta, for your inspiring presentation. And thank you also for sharing your experience with the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN and how your work with the community in Cambodia has created many positive impact for the society. So now, everyone, it's for the moment that you've been waiting for. We are now going into the Q&A session. Before I read the questions that we receive on our Q&A box, I'd like to invite those who would like to directly ask questions to our panelists. Please click the participant button on your Zoom control panel, then click the raise hand so I can see you. I will invite two audience to ask questions to three of our panelists. Okay, so I see one person. Oh, okay, two people raise hand. So first I will give the chance to Daniel. Daniel, please introduce yourself and mention who would you like to give your question to. You may unmute yourself. Daniel, you may unmute yourself and mention your question. Are you able to unmute? All right, if not, then I'm gonna give the chance to Berliana. You can unmute yourself and introduce yourself and mention who would you like to give your question to.
Good afternoon. So my question is that knowing that the social cohesion, in order for us to achieve social cohesion, it needs mutual understanding. And in today's world, the how do we achieve the mutual understanding between um, all levels in the society, so that if we have those mutual understanding achieved, we can enables the solidarity force between the government and the society in general. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Berliana. Since you don't mention specifically who you'd like to give your question to, is there any panelists who would like to address that question? Anyone? Or perhaps we can start with David.
Yeah, that's a that's a loaded question. How do we achieve mutual understanding in all levels? If I had the exact answer to that, I think there might not be wars or pandemics or famines or etc. But I think there are places to start, certainly, and I think that can be achieved within education, mutual understanding within education, the courses that are taught, the way that the teachers are teaching, the projects that are provided, the activities that are given. Providing opportunities, educators providing opportunities to broaden the horizons and understanding of their students by really taking advantage of the existing opportunities outside the classroom, but also creating opportunities within the classroom that promote diversity and intercultural dialogue, and et cetera. So I think it's a big thing. It's a big thing to do on our list, but I think we could certainly start there.
Okay, thank you, David. I think I would like to give this question to Datuk Marina Mahathir as well. So the question is how to achieve mutual understanding among all levels of society.
Thank you. I thought I would leave it to all the young people to answer. But yes, I agree with David that the only way is through education, but very deliberate type of education. I think to where you do make the effort to be inclusive, to include people from different walks of life, different levels in society, so that people humanize different groups of people and are able to empathize more, and that's where I think volunteerism is a very good way indeed. um, Schools, it really depends on how diverse the student population is. If everyone is in different types of school, that's not going to happen unless teachers make the effort to reach out to other groups of people. So it's going to be a long-term project, but it's got to start somewhere, I think. And I think young people are the most open to this types of programs. Going out a bit out of their comfort zones and learning more about others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir, for your wonderful answer. Um, Now I will give chance to one more person to directly ask to our panelists. So anyone who would like to ask your question, please click the participant button, then click raise hand. Okay, we have Royal here. So you can unmute yourself and mention your question.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Riel Ramirez, and I'm a student in the University of Santo Tomas in the Philippines. I just have a question in mind that are the current youth that are currently affected by online classes are less preferably hired by institutions compared to those who aren't affected? Because it feels like me and my friends are experiencing this anxiety that we are learning less than others.
Okay. Ryle, could you please
Yes.
repeat your question one more time? Sorry, I couldn't hear you very clearly.
Okay. So it feels like during this pandemic, with the online classes ongoing, it feels like the youth are currently experiencing an anxiety wherein we are learning less compared to those days that we are having our face-to-face classes. um, are we preferably less likely to be hired than other generations?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very interesting question. So since now the youth are learning from home, they learn using online platform, does it makes them less interactive to the job market, let's say? And what the youth what the youth can do to cope with this situation? I think I will give this question to Miss Ruby and after that to Miss Fanta.
Yes. Thank you for bringing this very important question. I think every youth experience this, and it is not easy because we are human being and we love to be, face to face, touching, hugging, and then talking directly, and then gossiping and whatever we want to do. And suddenly we have to really, have to isolate it ourselves. And then home is the only, place that, everyone, the family members is inside. And but situation is make us like that. The best way to do is actually you can use the facility that providing by your government or maybe civil society dealing with psychosocial and understanding why I am feeling like that, and starting actually sharing with the other young people, and then the same feeling. And then I believe that the good start to actually able to, open possible solution. I give you one example, maybe not precisely to what you experience, but I'm working with the interfaith mothers that they never actually active in their social engagement in their community. When we started this program, we were confused with the characters of the mothers that silent and they don't much talking, and but they're holding something that actually they experience gender inequality. But when we started the program, we just push out everything about the, the material, the knowledge, peace building, conflict resolution, whatever. I just keep it outside. And I started with actually sharing heart to heart, sharing. I want to listen their life, why, and how we can work together in bringing, the future of the mothers with much better, and then with a lot of support from the other women. And I found in the last 13 years that actually the best way to work with the mothers, or even the group that actually not confident or holding fear or doesn't have much, open character, then I call it as incubator place. You need to have small like incubator that to actually train your leadership, and to train the leadership that actually to start with the courageous, the openness. And we need to create our own the safe space, how we can share our feeling and bring others to that. And then you will grow it actually by listening others and then finding a way how actually we can support each others. Currently, the online world is very much lonely for some of us. Therefore, we need to make sure that the support is coming from your family and also your friends, and make it real in doing many works. We are lucky in Indonesia, we don't do lockdown, but actually large scale social restriction right now is also hindering somebody, moving or mobility in the town. But the government still allow, for any action actually taken to help others with a very stricted health protocol. Let's start with creating your own incubator, and that is, you will see the magic. You will see a lot of people interested, and then you will see that you yourself start in growing your leadership and then leading, of course, the change in your community. I hope this helped. I know it is not easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the practical tips that you've shared with us, Miss Ruby. I'm sure it will be very helpful. Perhaps Miss Fanta, you would like to add to that, how to deal with the anxiety of learning from home and the anxiety of, oh, maybe I'm not very capable to compete in the job market because I do my school online. How can we deal with that?
Thank you for the question. And to be honest, I don't have an experience with this because I'm not a student anymore. But I can understand and feel how hard it is when this school temporary closed and then you focus on online learning, especially for the country that don't have the fulfill or infrastructure for online learning. So I think a student should be taught to school, or school should be work collaborate with the government to make a suggestion for the new technology and way of online learning. Because imagine, for example, we spend 4 hours in half morning on screen to listen the presentation, something like that. Even you feel like class, but it's still not. It's very lonely, and I think people cannot stand behind the screen 4 hours and 8 hours a day for the online learning. So I think this is a very important that school should be working out to provide a new technology and methodology how to get efficiencies of e-learning. For example, they can provide the infrastructure by e-document, sort of presentation from teacher, theory, and then let the student learn and submit the assignment or submit the result by specific timeline. So I think it would be help a student to feel they have a job, they have a time to in touch with a lecturer, and they have a time to gathering with the classmates, something like that. Not only focus on the presentation on the full screen. So I think that make a student and Johnson very frustrated and annoyed. They feeling and they feel no work out, and I can imagine. But it is my suggestion. I think students should be taught, and the government should be and strongly support to have the new technology and infrastructure of the e-learning, because otherwise it will be effective to the negative and unqualified of education, because education is about full session and module, but if someone miss, I think it will be not a good score that they worry for the carry or the certificate after the graduate. So I think they talk to school and find a way to work out with the lecturer, and the government should be involved on this. So.
Thank you, Ms. Fanta, for your answer. I agree that not only the student that must play a role in this issue, but also the teachers, schools, and even the government as well, because this is not a small issue. It's important to address the anxiety of the young people nowadays. Okay, so thank you for those who already directly asked your questions to our panelists. We still have a lot of time, So I'm going to read questions that we receive on our Q&A box. Um, I will read some questions that are interesting. This question is for Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir. I hope she's still here. Okay, yeah, I think she's still here. So,
Yes.
yep, thank you. So this question is already answered, but I think it's a very interesting question, and I hope you don't mind sharing again your perspective on this question. So the question is how youth and even program like empowering youth, how youth and even program like empowering youth across ASEAN can help empower women, and how women's role or liberty in ASEAN differs in other parts of the world.
Okay, thank you, whoever was asking that. I will read out the answer that I put in the answer section. Um, and I think that if youth program, and I've mentioned this earlier, that if youth programs consciously ensure that all their programs are inclusive, then they will go a long way towards empowering women and any other marginalized groups. And by consciously, I mean that, you know, if you have a panel talking about anything, that you do make sure that your panelists are diverse and that it's not all men, you know, something like that. Like today, it's pretty good because you have people from different countries, you have women, you have men, and everything. Because we're finding, at least among older people, they are not very conscious about this, and it's a big problem because it really reflects how they think about women, that we are not qualified to talk about many things, which is not true at all. You know, everything affects us, and we should have an opportunity to put our views across as well. The other question about women's role or liberty in ASEAN, I'm not sure about liberty differs in other parts of the world. It's very hard to generalize such a big area, such as ASEAN, you know, with 10 countries, 10 different governing systems, different economies, and everything. The status of women in each country depends on the environment that they're in, the economic, political, social, cultural environment that they're in. And while there are laws and policies that, in theory, support women in many of these countries, what matters most is really how they are implemented at the ground level. Um, you know, are people serious about implementing them? And for example, you know, things like family laws uh, have a role in either empowering or disempowering women. For instance, you know, family laws often dictate whether there is equality in marriage, whether women are treated as equal partners in marriage or not. And if they are not, then they are unlikely to be seen as equal citizens in the country. And as an example, in some places where women cannot open bank accounts without husband's approval, or cannot have surgery without husband's approval, that's very disempowering, because then it means that they're not recognized as full human beings who have their own agency to make these decisions themselves. So there are, you know, it's very hard to just say ASEAN, because you really have to look at the different countries. Some countries are better than others, and some still have to work on you know, supporting women in their society still.
Thank you very much, Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir, for the answer. And sorry to make you repeating your answer twice, but I think it's important for our audience to hear your answer. So thank you very much. Next, I will read some questions that we have on the Q&A box. These questions will be directed to our speakers today. And for the speakers, since we have so many questions that we received, I would appreciate if you can give brief answer, 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so first question is for, okay, first question is from Vicky Monikasari, and I believe this one is for David. So she said, that's a wonderful presentation, David, and I agree with you that we need a lot of young leaders for volunteerism to make this world better by finding the solution and action to the COVID-19, especially for the education. What other solution to influence the young generation to be sure to taking an action during this pandemic?
Sorry, repeat the question one more time.
Okay, so the question is, what other solution to influence the young generation to be sure to taking an action during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think there really are many solutions and opportunities available for young people to take action. It's just, the problem is really just not knowing about it. And I think like one of the things that educators could do is like talk about those things. They could look online, look on social media, rely on friends doing these things. I think in many ways, we have to make the opportunities that we want. We have to, if there isn't an opportunity available, we have to make that opportunity. We have to make that solution. We have to make that intervention. And we need to find people who are like-minded, who agree with that. But in this time where it's difficult, where we have time, where we have uncertainty, where we have anxiety, where we're not sure what to do, we have to sort of seek out and find a way to make solutions or find others who are doing that. And there certainly are resources available for that, I think. I'm not sure if that really touches upon the question exactly. I apologize if it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer. I think it does. Find like-minded people is very important. They share the same excitement, I think, and that can be source of spirit for us to continue our volunteerism project. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. Next question is from Nguyen Tam. I believe this question is for Miss Ruby. I am from Vietnam. The case of girl teenagers want and not want to wear hijab interested me. What is the current situation now? The percentage of girl students wearing hijab and which situation it is compulsory for them to wear. Thank you. What is the current situation now with the case in West Sumatra? I think that's the question.
Yeah. Okay, wearing or not wearing hijab is the right, is the choice of everyone. Even though that somebody believe that wearing hijab is compulsory according to the interpretation of the religious teaching, it should not force to to others. So why it has happened? Because somebody think that it is okay to bring religious teaching into the policy. We understand that all religion teaching nonviolence, yes, we agree on that. Anti-discrimination, loving people, for example, and then respect. Those kind of universal values should reflect in the policy as well as in our education. But once is talking about how you be polite, how you be considered as modest, for example, that exactly very much your culture element will playing out. But the culture is not alone. The culture has been used by certain people and then justify the religious teaching. For example, what the big issue surrounding a hijab or not having hijab is about how you cover properly your body. The aurat in Arabic language, it means that your private part. And every religion has a different interpretation on private part. And what we consider private part, of course, have to link with the local standard. In your country, the private card may not workable in our country. However, since Muslim has a different school of thoughts and so many interpretation about how wearing hijab, not how to cover private part, and then it turns to different way how to express, wearing hijab. Like me, for example, I understand that this is choice, and I've been taught with my guru or my religious scholar and leaders, saying that is a choice. If it is if you wear it, it is good. If you don't, it doesn't matter at all, because by the end, only the kindness will actually determine whether you, in our belief, whether you go to the hell or you go to the paradise. Is not what you're wearing, yeah. But when it comes to the school and formalize, that is very dangerous, because the particular person will only use one interpretation, while in the religion we have many interpretation. To respect other interpretation should not, any religious teaching that is very specific into particularly subject to how to dress up, whatever, should not actually formalize into the policy, and it will create a lot of tension, because you have to think other policy that how minority and those things, and too much, and better actually using the human rights as the baseline. The human rights will actually provide much more, comfortable places and comfortable, for everyone to express. So again, even in other religion, if you are non-Muslim but you believe in certain thing and you force it into the policy, that is very dangerous. I love remaining natural. I love remaining that human right is the only values that we need to follow. I believe in religion, but the way we teach religion, don't abuse religion on behalf of religion, that you use it as so many things, and then created a lot of tension or even conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ruby, for your very comprehensive answer. I hope that answers Nguyen's question. So I will read just one last question for this Q&A, and this question is from Fatin Farina. I will give this question to Ms. Fanta. The question is, what would you advise us to become more aware and act in our best capacity to help in taking action to world peace locally and globally? Especially in this pandemic, what would you highly encourage us to begin with in order for us to take the role of youth? Thank you. Ms. Fanta?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think this is a very good question and very inspiring. The question comes from who have the future plan. During this situation, and you still can use the potential and make their dream come true. So I think the first, you should be know the goal, what the potential, and where they want to go in. For example, the next 5 years or next 3 years. So they have to allocate the specific goal and plan to explore the potential and skill to get involved in the organization, or to talk to someone who can provide the advice, to share them the real experience, and to let them to involve. So I think this is a very important to use. They can get started, and they can get to participate in any work or any role model in the society. I youth don't have my experience, so I encourage them to explore to the group. If they don't have the individual's opportunity, they should be participate in the group, in the organization that allow them to participate and learn and share and explore their idea. and the goal and the future, I think they should also share. If they have a specific goal and project they want to do, they want to action, they want to implement, they should be shared to those who are interested in their idea or in their project, and those who can help and support their project idea. So I think they talk to the right person and learn from the experience people who can provide them the real experience and opportunity to work and close with them. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fanta,
That's all.
Thank you very much for your answer. I think it answered the question. So what to start? Just talk to the right person, join volunteer group that match with your interests. From there, you can meet and connect with the right people. And from there, you can share your ideas to other youth, or you can make it as a source of motivation for you to create your own volunteer project. So that's wrap up our Q&A session for today. I'm sorry if we weren't able to cover all the questions. So thank you very much, everyone who have participated in this webinar. I would like to thank our speakers and Datin Paduka Marina Mahathir for staying until the end of this webinar. We hope that this webinar inspire everyone to take part in creating and preserving peace and tolerance in their community. So ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned by our MC earlier, this webinar is part of the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program, which is a collaborative program between ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation to empower youth across ASEAN towards sustainable development. If you would like to know more about this program and our upcoming webinars, please visit ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation's website and social media handles, as you can see on the screen. So now I'll pass it back to our MC, Alda.
Thank you to all the speakers for the insightful discussion, and thank you, Ms. Jenier, for moderating the session. Next up, we are having a little evaluation. Please complete the survey question through the link as you can see on the screen, and I will send you the link as well on the chat box. The air certificate will be provided to participants who completed the survey and will be sent to you through email. Now, I will give you 2 minutes to fill in the survey.
I really want to contribute because I started my career as a volunteer 10 years ago, and now I have a quite good career and a lot of experience, a lot of networking in Laos, in ASEAN, and other countries in the world.
I volunteer because I have a really big concern toward children education right issues in Indonesia and also in other ASEAN countries.
Volunteering is sharing our time, sharing our energy, in order to make the world a better place.
I personally define volunteering as the act of giving to help and giving to benefit others without getting paid or having any expectation of getting something in return.
To me, volunteering is being a part of a cause that serves as a betterment for your community. And nowadays, I think the word community is not only limited to the country that we're living in, but it also extends to the rest of the world as well.
The best part about volunteering is I have the opportunity to see myself and experience how people's lives change, and what matters most is to see people smile.
To be a leader, a stronger, focused and fierce leader is why I want to join this program. To be given the opportunity to widen so many aspects in myself to help this community is something I want to be a part of.
Basically, I volunteer because it is worth my time. And knowing that I am helping someone, when I volunteer, I feel I am connected with people and its community serving towards one goal.
Youth is an essential source of community development because they have skill, potential, and creativity that can contribute to making a big impact to their country as well as to the ASEAN community as a whole.
Bringing together ASEAN as a whole is just a first step in bringing together a global humanitarian movement, and one that is bound to unlock a lot more potential in that.
I see IA as a great opportunity for me to develop myself,
not only as an individual, but it also allows me to be a competent change maker in my community.
AIA is one of the most prestigious volunteering platforms across Southeast Asia, and I do believe with AIA I can maximize the potential or the impact that I could give back to the society.
Before we continue, I would like to once again remind the participants that you need to complete the survey in order to obtain your A certificate. You can find the link on the chat box. And thank you to all of you who have completed the evaluation survey. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of today's webinar. Please allow us to send our deepest appreciation to everyone for giving us your attention. We would like to express our sincerest gratitude for the enormous support we received from our partners for making this webinar a success. Finally, we would like to thank our attendees for your engagement in this webinar. If you want to watch this webinar again, you can rewatch it on our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for our next upcoming event. Until then, please stay safe and have a good day. Thank you and goodbye.